Hello and welcome. Today we're going to make a super simple pie that anyone can make. Peaches. Who doesn't love a peach pie? Well, besides people who don't like peaches or have allergies to them. Today we're going to be making a pie with canned peaches, so no matter if the peaches are in season or not, you can make this any time of year. I'm also going to make 3 common mistakes in this video. I will let you know why they are mistakes and show you what they caused and how to avoid that. For this recipe, we will be needing 2 store-bought pie crusts. Most packages have 2 in them, so you typically only need to get 1 package. 1 32-ounce can of peaches in juice if possible. Syrup is okay, but juice is preferable. 1 cup granulated white sugar, 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 tablespoon lemon juice, 1 tablespoon vanilla extract, a half a cup of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of butter. We're going to need that to give the flour something to thicken with. You can switch this out for any vegan spread, but do not use margarine as it is mostly water and does not contain enough fats to thicken the pie filling. Before you start mixing anything, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. That way it's preheating while you're mixing stuff, and since it does that, it gets to a point where the temperature is much more stable. So, how simple is this recipe, you ask? For the most part, we only need to mix a few ingredients. It's really that simple. We just need to add all the ingredients to our mixing bowl except for the flour and mix it a bit to make sure our spices are evenly distributed. This is just going to make sure the flavors are fully mixed and no bites of are missing any of the main flavors. Once the liquid is mostly even in color and most of your butter chunks are at this point down to small bits of butter, we can begin adding our flour. So we want to slowly incorporate the flour by adding a little bit and mixing it in, and once that's mixed in fully, we want to add a little bit more and mix it again, repeating this process until all of your flour has been mixed in. This will prevent clumps of flour from forming and prevents people from biting into, say, a pocket of raw flour, which nobody wants to do. As always, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if you're enjoying this, like and subscribe for more videos and recipes. And also, of course, cats. So many cats. Cats here, cats there, cats everywhere. So, as I said, you want to mix it in slowly to prevent clumps. But what would happen if we, say, just dumped all the flour in at once? Well, we would get some serious clumping because our flour clumps at all temperatures, unlike something like cornstarch, which would not clump if we were using cold liquid. So to fix clumping, we will need to gently continue mixing the filling until the largest clumps are about the size of a grain of rice. So you just gently keep stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring, and it'll probably take about 5 to 10 minutes of gently stirring to where all your pieces have about the size of a grain of rice. Once they're that small, they will cook out into the filling and they will not leave any trace of the clumps. Okay, once your filling mixture is ready, we want to add our bottom pie crust to the pan and get our filling in there. Do not grease the pie pan or the crust will get doughy instead of crispy. While you're doing this, you want the top of the crust to be just over or even with the very top of the pie plate. So it should look something like this picture. But since this is a pie of failure, we will be intentionally making it slightly uneven. Not a huge amount of unevenness, but just enough to give the impression that it might be fine to skip it at this step. Once that is all finished up, simply dump your mix into the now crusted pie plate. Since the canned peaches are already soft, we can forego the normal stovetop boiling that might be required if we had used fresh peaches to get them soft enough for a pie filling. So for the top crust, after unrolling it, I'm going to make the simplest of designs. This will also let us see the final mistake more clearly. So taking a roughly straight object, in my case the backside of a knife, we're going to make 4 slashes going outwards. 1 up, 1 down, 1 right and left side of to guide the leafish designs. The length of that slash is going to dictate how large your leaf is. This design is super easy to make, and it can give your pie some extra style. Even if you're making it from a can and using store-bought pie crust, we can still make it feel a little bit more special. You're going to want an round object that is just slightly bigger than the length of your guideline. This is going to line it up with the top and bottom of the slashes and trace it with your knife. This lets you trace out a slimmer curve than the actual circle, and makes it more leaf-like in shape like you see me doing here. In the spirit of the failed pie, we will be making all of these different sizes. This is probably the simplest and easiest decoration you can do to make a quick pie though. I moved my crust onto a flexible cutting mat to make it easy for me to just turn it over on top of the pie. Outside of a bit of a splash on the one side, it actually worked pretty well. Now for the next mistake, I should have placed a small layer of water between the top and bottom crust where they meet to seal them together properly. As you will see, even doing a small amount of pushing them together and pinching will not be enough without that bit of water. And it will show in a quite funny way, actually. Once it's all pinched together and ready, we just need to add our leaves. I just put them in the center and pointed them outward in between the holes, just to make a nice simple design. Ah, the final mistake. When to put on your egg wash. An egg wash is done by beating an egg and then just brushing it on top of the crust. It gives it a nice deep brown and semi-shiny crust that looks so nice on pies. As these pictures show, doing it right can make your pie look fantastic. Not doing it leaves your pie a much lighter in color on the pie crust. You want to make sure to put it on before it goes in the oven. This ensures the egg wash has a dry layer to adhere to, and by doing this your egg wash will then brown very evenly across the whole pie. Here I'm going to be putting that on the pie about 15 minutes into the cooking, just to show you what happens if you forget and then you try to do that later, which is a fairly common mistake. Off to the oven we go. Once your pie plate is in the oven, turn the temperature down to 350 and bake for 50 to 55 minutes. Let's talk about the preheat temp versus the baking temp and why we are doing it this way. So here's the why. Every time we open the oven, it loses a sizable amount of heat due to some of the air exchanging with the cold air outside the oven. In most of my testing, it ended up between about 15 to 30 degrees for most typical household ovens. Doing 25 over the preheat means we will be within about 350 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees. This helps our crust get done sooner and gives less time for the filling to make it doughy. Once we are at the 50-minute mark, we know the filling is done, and at this point it's just a matter of deciding when our browning is good enough. Mine got an extra 5 minutes, again to help me highlight the egg wash mistake more. Looking at the results of the egg wash not being properly applied to a dry crust, you can see uneven browning, and you can see where the egg wash just flowed right off any of the raised areas. In our case, here the egg wash was unable to adhere to the heated crusts, now liquid fat instead of solid, and we ended up with areas that have little to no browning on the raised areas, and deep browning on all the low areas that it flowed into. While it does make an interesting look, it's not typically what you would like in a pie. The solution, of course, is to make sure you add your egg wash as soon as you finish putting the top of your pie crust on. So, remember the water I didn't use to make sure the pie crusts actually stayed stuck together? Looking at these pictures, you can see the top crust essentially was lifted off by the expansion of the liquids and the heating, and that the top is now pretty much just hovering above the filling and only being held in place in some areas by the filling itself. It is not connected to the side at all. Again, the simple fix is you just need to rub a little bit of water on each section where the crusts meet, and then the pie dough will bond together instead of just being two separate crusts like here. The pie of failure, even with all its mistakes, still ends up actually looking decent. And the taste is, of course, the most important part, and this one has a great leading combo of vanilla and peach combining for a really nice flavor. And with that, our pie is done and ready to go. Obviously, yours will be a little more wonderful in the appearance department than mine, but no matter if it's pretty or not, it will be delicious. So, a thank you to everyone for watching and sharing the videos. It really helps the channel out a lot and is a bright spot in every one of my days. As always, have a great day and a great meal.